Hey everyone, we just got a big shipment in of plants. So I'll try and do a few videos here just to show you guys what we got in and what it looks like. The first one we got that I'm showing here is glossostigma. We've brought this in from a few different places now, and the place we get it from now really does a really good job with it. Some places they do it grown immersed, and it's from my experience, it's a hard transition to get it to grow in the aquarium. These ones are all grown submerged in pots, and as you can see, each pot has, I don't know, 100 different plants there. So this is not a plant. This is a plant where a little goes a long way. To plant this properly, you really need to sort of separate all the little plantlets out, and each, you can sort of see it here. Each sort of plantlet has about two or three leaves on it, so you can see how many plants are in a pot. Now, I mean, you could just take the pot and just sort of plop it into your tank and let it spread. But if you want to get maximum benefit from these, you really gotta put aside a good couple hours in separating all the plants, and then getting yourself some good tweezers and planting each plantlet into the substrate. I found that's the best way to do it, and you really don't need more than a pot or two of these to get going on it. Okay, the next plant is a crypt. It's called Lingua, and from what I can tell, it's grown immersed, so it'll probably take a while to grow in at your tank. But the good thing about immersed plants is they do ship very well, because they're not the plant structure itself is a lot sturdier in terms of the stem and the base and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, the rest of my plants ship fine too, but these ones are very easy to ship. And as you can see, it's got some nice looking leaves to it. I never have this long enough to really see how it grows out, because it just gets sold out right away. But yeah, if you're looking for something different, this is a nice looking crypt. Is to really take apart one of those clumps. And I mean, you could probably take that apart into about maybe 10 or so different individual plants, and then plant it sort of in the area that you intend to fill in with the dwarf hairgrass. It's not a terribly difficult plant. It'll do really well in good substrate and CO2 and good light. It'll sort of I don't know, it'll exist in lower light levels and maybe not as good of a substrate. It's not one of those plants that just typically dies off after a couple of days, but so it depends on your situation. It might be fine in a sort of a medium tech, low tech setup, but it probably just will sort of just sit there and not really grow very much. I found that it just really grows well with CO2 and a good fluoride or ADA substrate or something like that. Here we got some Rotella indica green. I've been bringing this in the last few orders, and basically it's grown immersed at the nursery, and it's always sent to me immersed. So I thought I'd just show you a little bit of what it looks like as I get it. It basically looks like this. I've just unpacked it. Now if we move over to one of our tanks here, I can show you. So that's basically the same plant in here. So here you can see the immersed, those are the round leaves there, and then after a while you'll see the more traditional Rotella leaves come out. So yeah, I'm going to put this video on the product page just so you know. It depends when I send it to you what it's going to look like. I mean, if you order it today, you're going to get this stuff. It's going to be, you know, obviously partially immersed and partially already grown out, but it depends when I send it to you. So just so you know, but I haven't had this in a high-tech setup. It's just been in a tank with decent light, and it's done pretty well. Okay, next up we've got some Marsilia quadrifolia, 4-leaf clover. This stuff is the emerged form or submerged form, so it should adapt to your aquarium fairly quickly. It's oftentimes grown, it's one of those plants that's grown immersed. It's a common pond plant too, so one time I brought it in and it was totally immersed, and I find it a hard plant to get going, so I usually only sell it if I have it in this form. So this is another hair grass that we bring in. This is called Eleucharis vivipara. So if you remember, the other one was quite small. This one's obviously quite a longer one. And I'm pretty sure it's obviously grown immersed. You can see the buds at the end of this this sort of plant here. But it's a nice mid-ground, background plant, depending on what you want. It's not a terribly demanding plant. I'm not sure how it spreads out and stuff like that. I haven't brought in too much of this stuff and never kept it myself as a hobbyist. So, but it's a fairly undemanding plant. Here we have some baby tears. This is the larger variety of your dwarf baby tears. Micranthemum micranthomoides, it's called. This is kind of a cool plant. It can be used as a regular sort of stem plant, but it's also a very good option as a carpeting plant if you have a really good substrate and you've got a lot of light and CO2. It'll carpet in the same fashion that glossostigma carpets. I did a nano tank with it, I don't know, 8 years ago or something. It's on my site, I think. But it's yeah, it's a little bit probably easier than dwarf baby tears as far as carpeting goes. It just grows horizontally. So I brought in a few of these. It's a bit of a, this one doesn't really ship to me very well. A lot of times it ends up as mush, which doesn't work very well. But this time it looked pretty good. So I've only got like 5 bunches of these. Next up we've got some Pogostemon stellata. I think the nursery calls it Eustralis stellata, Christmas plant. This looks exactly like Pogostemon stellata to me, so that's what I'll do. That's what I'll call it. It's also very similar to Linophila aromatica in the sense that it's you know, similar to leaf structure and color as well. As you can see, it's a very purplish type of plant. We brought in some Kabomba as well. We usually bring in some variety of Kabomba with every shipment. This one is Kabomba aquatica, a yellow Kabomba. Obviously it doesn't look very yellow in the picture, but it does, I mean, it's not yellow, but it does get a sort of a goldish color to it, which is why they call it yellow. And this stuff really, I'm really surprised with this. This stuff ships really well to me. A lot of times when I used to order it, it just used to end up being mush, but this stuff really looks good. So that's on my site. I mean, obviously I got a huge bunch here, but typically a portion of this would be 6 or 7 stems. I try to make them look like a nice bunch that you can put in your aquarium, however many stems that takes, basically. So this is the yellow Kabomba. As I'm sitting here, I might as well just show you the other one that we have on stock there too. That one is red, Kabomba red, and there's a few green ones in the front there as well. But that one's really a really nice. You can see the red on there. Okay, Here we had some Ludwigia. It's called Ludwigia palustris. Basically, it's very similar to Ludwigia repens. I know there is I did a little bit of research into this one because it does look exactly like it, and I'm not sure if the place I get it from just calls it this or if it's the real version. But there is a real species called Ludwigia palustris, and I mean, this might be it, I'm not sure. But anyways, it looks very similar to Ludwigia repens. See the nice color in there. Again, probably 5-6 stems per order, depending on the size of the stem, etc. But that's about what it is. Another Ludwigia we brought in, Peruensis. This is a really colorful plant. And again, bundles of 5 or 6 there. You can see the colors in those. Nice reds and sort of purplish colors, dark greens. Another crypt we brought in here, Crypt ciliata. One of the notable features about this crypt is the base of it. It's very thick. It's like a tree trunk almost. These are grown immersed. I've brought these in a few times. This is definitely the biggest that I've ever seen them. And I believe that these are a little bit more expensive. So I think the portions of these are maybe 1 or 2. But there's, 4 or 5 leaves on each one, so I'm going to have a hard time figuring out where to put these things now. I probably shouldn't have brought in so many of them. Anyways, okay, that's it. Getting down to the last few. I've skipped over a bunch of stuff that I didn't feel were well worth noting, but this is Bloxa japonica. This is a nice. It usually arrives to me, well, looking like this. It's looks fairly tall, but I've seen it grow. I mean, it seems to grow tall in certain setups, and then in certain setups it will stay kind of small and bushy. I guess it depends on maybe how much light there is or whatever. So in this particular situation, this is one plant. A portion will be 3 of these, approximately. Might be more. Here's a new addition to our site. I've brought this in a few times, but it's available so rarely that it's not one of my standard plants that I got on there. This is Tonia fluvitalis. Do a bit of reading on it before you buy it if you're thinking about buying it. It is a hard plant, from what I've read. I've kept it in a few of my tanks and haven't had any problems with it, but from what I've read, it's supposed to be a hard plant to grow. So, and it's a very expensive plant for me to bring in too, so I basically have to sell it by the stem. I can't remember what I'm selling it for, but I think a portion is basically 2 of these stems for $9.99, I think. You probably can find, if somebody's growing it out there and as a hobbyist, you can probably find it a little cheaper, obviously, but it's very expensive, and I try to keep the cost of it as reasonable as I can, but there's not much I can do about it. Here's a shot of the Tonia. I just put it up in one of my 88 tanks here. I'm trying to think of what it would look like. Actually, you know what it looks like? It looks like looks a little bit like Egeria najas, the sort of thin form of Anacris, but it's not that. Anacris is more of a weed, actually.